So we're going to talk first about the Bullish Pre Runners, probably one of the two favorites out there. So basically, as I talked about in that graphic, before an earnings release, you can think of hot stocks, ones that have been, very bullish. We think people are piling into this prior to the earnings and anticipation that, they're going to have really good results, blowout quarter, thing like that. So what we look for and test is, up to 20 days, that's trading days, 20 trading days prior to the earnings announcement. We run tests on all the stocks that, meet our screening criteria. So they have regular, consistent movements upward each quarter right before earnings. So once they meet that criteria, then we test them with different strategies to see, is it a profitable trade or not? So what we look for within that 20-day trading day window is basically a 25% gain on a long call. So we test them all. Some of them, people say you can try and get higher percentages, and there are a few stocks that you can get higher than 25% on a kind of regular basis, but those are kind of few and far between. So normally, we just target that 25%, and that's kind of a common theme throughout all of our earnings trades is that 25%. So, that may not sound like a lot to some options traders, but, if you think in terms of stocks, if you had a 25% gain in your 401k for the year, you'd be really happy, on a consistent basis. So these are, anywhere from 1-day trades, for like the vol crush to 20-day trades would be the maximum that we have in the earnings module that we have. So we don't. So we only use long calls for this because you have two things working in your favor, which is always something that you look for in options trades. So going into the earnings announcement, the volatility is going to rise. So that means the premiums on the calls and puts are going to be going up, as earnings gets closer and closer. So if we can find stocks that, show an actual price movement with that volatility increase, then those are going to be great candidates to trade, quarter over quarter. Yeah. So that's the same thing I just explained. So on the opposite side of that, some people like to do, naked puts, selling a put. We don't recommend that. And anything, you want to do, you can always test it in the system yourself. Me and Sean do all this testing for people to kind of make it easy because it's a lot of testing. And I'll show you quickly how I went through and did, the Bullish Pre Runners. So we don't think any kind of, short or any kind of calendars or spreads are good for this type of trade. We just strictly long calls because of IV and price movement. So, the trading strategy, as I said, and this is exactly what we use. So long call, we'll start at 20 days and work all the way down to 5 days. So we test, 14, 15 iterations for each individual stock, where we're just looking for a 25% profit. We use a monthly expiration, so it has to be at least 2 months away. And the reason that we do that and not shorter, even though shorter are cheaper, any kind of as you get shorter and shorter on your expirations, your time decay is going to get higher and higher. So we just found through testing that, if we go out 60 days, we're paying a little more, but we see a lot less decay versus like short-term ones, and we see higher win rates. So that's, everything we have here is for a reason. We like the deltas, stop losses, everything. So it's all based off of extensive testing. So, how we select it, we'll go 2 months out, 60 days, and then we'll look for the 30 delta for that expiration. And that's just kind of the sweet spot. I'm not saying it's perfect for every trade, but, as a group, if we're talking, we tested 400 symbols for, these trades. So, that 30 delta is pretty much the sweet spot overall. Now, some, if you want to individually test them, you may find better results at, right at the money of 45, 50 delta. But in general, this is kind of, the best that we found, the 30 to 35, if you get direction right, then that's going to probably be your best return most of the time. So this is how we find our candidates in the screener. So we look for, 15 days prior to earnings. It has to go up, at least 3%, 7 out of the last 10 years. So as long as it meets that criteria, and I think there was 100 something of them that, out of the 400 that we scanned that met that criteria. So that 410 that we scanned, we call those liquid options. The big change, one of the big changes from last quarter to this quarter, our system's expanded. So last quarter we had about 1,200 total symbols, and our liquid options list was about 300. So this time, we've expanded to 4,000 symbols overall in the system. So that's all optionable US stock and ETFs and all those. So from that list of 4,000, we go through and screened out for liquidity, things that we want to be able to trade, and most of our trades are 60 days out. So we go out and scan for 2 months out and look at their expiration tables, their option tables, to make sure that we can execute trades for them. So the list is about 410 that we scan for this criteria. And each one, each criteria that we go through, is going to have different results. But, we had well over 100 that met the Bullish Pre-Runner criteria. All right, so what I wanted to show is our Bullish Pre-Runner. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. While I'm doing that, I'll show you the spreadsheets. Just bear with me 1 second while I get this set up. So this is the system, how we do the screening, and I'm just going to do it for this first example. We won't do it for each one, just so you get a general idea. So we go through, and I'm looking for the next quarter, and I'm using this liquid options list, 410 symbols. So we go through and it scans that specific criteria, 3%, 7 out of the last 10 years. So you can see we have 176. So what we can do is down here, we can test each one. We can do it individually, or we can do a bulk test. So for the bulk test, it'll test all 176 at a time and give us results, which we'll download into a spreadsheet. But, if you're in the system, you can do your own testing, and you can change all these parameters however you want. So what we did specifically was went from 20 all the way down to like 5 days for each one. And, we got the results for each one. gives you the specific trades and the profit and all that for each one. So we go through that testing on a bulk basis for this earnings plan. But if there's trades you want to find, try and find ones that are better, or you want to tweak them, look for more, you can always try and do 50% or change the strikes however you want in the system. It's real fast. So so what we did, and I'll show you the spreadsheets, and we give these to everyone in our Google share drive, and I'll show you that in the resources. I can chat it out once Sean gets going here on his. But basically, we do that 20-day entry, and we have the profit win percentage. So we did it for all 176 stocks, and then from there we did 19, 8, all the way down to 5. So that's a large data set, obviously. So what we do, and this is available so you can comb through it if you want. So then we go to and filter it by 80% win rates. So we delete everything that's not above 80%. That's pretty much our trigger for trades. It has to be at least 80%. And from there we move to our best trades tab. So our best trades, we filter those by this criteria here: win over 80%, a profit factor over 3. So that's something we've altered a little from last quarter. We cut out ones that have profit factors in like 1.4 or something. So we're just looking for ones that are going to be moving a little bit more than the other ones. And also, as Sudhir had talked about, there were some conflicting trades. So that's something that we learned last time. We had a few pop up that were bearish and bullish runners. Obviously entry on, they had different entry days, but we just removed those conflicts. So if they were in both trades, then we just pulled them out of the list total. So once we have this list, then we go in and create alerts in the system, and it becomes in the trading plan, which we'll be showing you at the end. But this is the basic process that we run through for each individual strategy, the 8 different earning strategies that we have, and how we come about that list. And we share this up until pretty much the end of the quarter. It'll be on our share drive, so you guys can download it and do whatever you want with it. Okay.
I just wanted to put a side note in, Josh, real quick, just to let everybody know that doesn't know, right? The system has over 4,000 symbols in the system that we use. Some are ETFs, currency ETFs, different ETFs as such, and equities and things like that. So we go in the screener within Delphian and filter out from those 4,000 symbols, and then we come up with this liquid options list that Josh used here for the earnings. And the liquid options list uses a couple different factors from the screener section that just help try to find options that are going to be a little more liquid, highly tradable options that are just going to be easier to enter, hopefully easier to enter and easier to exit, when you're getting in a trade. So that's why we took the 4,000 down to 400. And you can obviously, use your own list or customize the list differently if you wanted to do so as well. So just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
Okay. So that's the process. It takes us about a week to get through all these. So so all this is available for you to go through and use at your pleasure. We make it easy in the system with the earnings plan, which I'll cover that in a little while. That'll be covered at the end. Okay, so back to Bullish Pre-Runners. So, for each one of these strategies that I'm going to cover, and I'm going to do 4 of them, I'm going to show you at least one example of, what we presented in the last quarter. And they're not all winners. And I do that for, that's basically, the things that we put out and show you how they did. If we just kind of think about Sudhir's results, he won about 75%. So, we don't want to put out false expectations that, you know, everyone's going to be a winner. If it's 100% win rate, then, you know, it's a guarantee. That's not, no, that's not how we want you to think about this. It's exactly how Sudhir talked about it, is, you know, level risk, you know, consistent trading, you know, quarter over quarter, you're going to make money, you know, if you stick to your, you know, your risk amounts, and, you know, you stick to the trading plan. So that's the main idea. So last quarter we talked about Google, and just, you know, side note, Google is kind of how we found this strategy. I think it's kind of the gold standard for the Bullish Pre-Runner. But on this chart here, and this was from back in August, before we did I created this before we did the September earnings webinar. But you can see in general, you know, here's the earnings date, and you can see this stock run up into it, you know, big run up into it. So, you know, finding that sweet spot, you know, what day is the best one for entry on these going back, you know, that's what we do with all the testing. So, you know, this was, you know, basically we said 16 days before the entry, you know, it won 90% of the time. You know, it's the last loss was that, you know, when the Fed started raising rates back in 18, you know, but other than that, it's been a solid candidate for quite some time. And, you know, we've had people, you know, and I think we've had people trading, I think, since at least 2 years. Some people have been doing this. Myself and Sean, include, you know, over 2 years, I believe we've been doing these. So, you know, we're getting more and more. I see there's more and more enthusiasm about these. So we like to put them out each quarter. We do all the work for you. And here's in general from the August, you know, before that trade was published, we said 16. Here's the previous results, you know, one loser, real strong overall. So now coming up to, you know, the last quarter, if you look kind of 16 days out, you know, it looked pretty good there. So the next trade, you know, it's still 16 days. It didn't even change. And that trade ended up, you know, more expensive. So, you know, beyond some people's amounts, but it was a winner, you know, within, you know, looks like 11 days there. So it was a profitable trade. And it actually came through the testing to be the same entry day, 16 days. So another one that we talked about was Facebook. Same type of thing. This is from the Q3 presentation. You know, we see this thing's running up into earnings pretty solid. You know, this would be a key spot to find here, you know, for that trading, you know, that exact date where things start going up, you know, the institutional money starts piling in. So, you know, this one was also a 90% winner. 19 days was the previous trade recommendation, and, you know, very good profit factor. You know, that one loss, that was the same time as Google, that 18, the fall of 18. So this time, you know, still had a nice run up. So this one was also good on the trade. So entry 10-1. You know, you got your a little over 25% and you got out. It took a little longer this time, but, you know, on average, so now it moved to 18 instead of, you know, the previous was 19. So, and that's just based off of the testing. So it didn't move much. Sometimes they'll move a few days, you know, if it's a good stock, but this one went from 19 to 18 this time. And, you know, still showing that 90%. So overall good. So this is probably our most populated trade. like the Bullish Pre-Runners, real small list. But there's so many good candidates for this. I wouldn't say you need to trade them all, but some people like to add in secondary indicators, like if they're above the 200-day SMA, things like that. You can do that independently. Outside of that earnings screener, you can do it in our regular screener to find stocks like that. So right now we have, from the list I showed you in Excel, there's 34 that had, 100% win rates, 111 over 90, and 144 overall that were over 80 and had a profit factor of at least 3. So one thing, just as a note, we talked, Sudhir talked a lot about it. This wasn't so much a problem pre-COVID crisis where they're moving earnings dates, but it's really a lot moving. A lot of them are moving now. Hopefully, with the vaccines rolling out, it'll start getting back to normal. But you have to be on your toes as far as the earnings dates being confirmed. We have it in the system where it shows you whether it's confirmed or not. But if those things change, I would just say, especially if it moves outside the window, then you just skip that trade. It's I think it was close to 50% of them moved their earnings date from what we were tracking. So that's a lot. And, that's kind of a stumbling block for the Bullish Pre-Runners because you're getting in, anywhere up to 20 trading days, which is about a month before the earnings. So, if you have any question about that, you can contact us. But, if it's not confirmed, you're not sure, I would just pass on it until, you have trades that you are certain are, in the correct trading window, their earnings dates are confirmed. So, we didn't have problems prior to COVID with this. It was 1-2 off. We changed our earnings date, but there's just so many are doing it now. So just be aware of that. So our system, if you use the earnings plan, will automatically calculate the entry date and tell you whether it's the earnings are confirmed or not. If they're not confirmed, that's kind of where you have to go on your own. We get our data from Zacks as far as earnings, so our data is only as good as them. You can check the company website if it's still unknown or not confirmed. You can check other platforms too, other trading platforms. So, but if you're counting back on your own, then you'd have to use make sure you just skip any holidays, because that's, if we say 19, that's 19 trading days. So if there's a holiday in there, you have to count an extra one. Always use limit orders. Always, when you're using options trades, just always use limit orders. And if you have questions about that, let me or Sean know. And what's so great about this trade is, once you enter the trade, and let's just say it costs you $100 to buy a long call for, AT&T or whatever. As soon as you execute that trade and you have that call, then you can put in a limit order to close the trade at 125% of whatever you purchased it. So that'd be a 25% profit. So if we bought that AT&T call for $100, then we'd put an order for 125 or 125. And anytime that pops over, it's going to automatically close you out of that trade. So you don't have to watch these as closely as like the iron butterfly trades, things like that. So, and the other one is you get out before the earnings release. So, if you haven't hit your profit target, by, you know, let's just say it's after the market closed today. If you haven't hit it, you know, your profit target by today, you got to get out before the close. You don't want to hold this through through the earnings. There's going to be a big vol crush. You know, if you get direction wrong, you know, you're going to get killed as far as that trade. So we always recommend you get out before the trade. Before the earnings. So that's how it's designed and tested. You know, if you hold it through, then just look at that as, you know, you're gambling. So.